our Armada in 120 days. And you can go see that museum in Venice. In fact, in my office, I have a picture of that production system. So the Venetians were the first to build a production system that flowed, where quickly they could assemble the ships and be ready to fight the Turks. Other applications, the British, with the dreadnoughts, the camels, Lawrence of Arabia, aerospace, American automobiles, other applications in history. So when we talk about mistakes, we look at, this is a slide from the Wall Street Journal. This is U.S. healthcare. So for every 1,000 patients who are taking a prescription drug, there are 99 who seek medical attention because of drug complications. 1,000 women with a marginally abnormal mammogram, there are 360 who do not receive appropriate follow-up. So mistakes in America are a problem, mistakes in Canada are a problem, mistakes in Europe are a problem, in every country they're a problem, all right? So mistake proving is very important. Hospital mistakes exceed 9 billion. This is really not an incorrect chart. The cost of mistakes in the U.S. Is more than 9 billion. I don't know the latest. This is based on 994 hospitals. So that's a big number. $9 billion U.S. dollars. Mistakes cost lives. In looking at medical errors in the U.S., I think this is probably the best one. Hospital errors cause 195,000 deaths that are easily preventable. In the U.S., out of 37 million hospitalizations, 1.14 million safety incidents occurred. So let me talk about some principles. The principles of the system, of the global production system, really the Toyota production system, are to improve without adding inventory, without adding space, large machines, without adding people, and without spending money. So the whole idea is to be able to improve without spending money, without adding more people, without adding more resources, all right? So you want to increase the value added. You want to reduce the non-value added. So the global production system, this house is actually from Toyota, and there's two very important elements to the house, just in time. So we want to provide patients the service that is needed in just the required amount that's needed and just where it is needed, all right? And on the right side, this is very difficult. So on the right side is Judoka, which is quality. So very simply, we want the people, patients, we want to have standard work for the people doing the supporting, providing health care to the patients. And to tack time is the number of patients per hour, per day that need to go through a clinic, for example. If you have 40 patients that must be, that you must see every day in the clinic, so every hour there needs to be a certain number of patients that are seen and read, all right? So that's the tack time, and it's a German word for the beat. Just like a conductor that leads a symphony, okay, there's a beat and a rhythm, and the symphony must end at a certain time, and it's based on the beat of the conductor leading the symphony. So materials, very important to have standard working process in Kanban and two-bin system. So in every healthcare facility, we work on reducing the inventory and usually cutting the inventory in half. At Seattle Children's Hospital, we in 36 months were able to reduce their inventory by $3 million. Right, inventory is a big cost. So it's usually 50% can be reduced in a hospital within 36 months by putting in a Kanban, which is a two-bin system, a signal system for the inventory that you have. So you want flow, you want one-piece flow, You want your machines to be operating, particularly healthcare equipment, CT scans. You want to make sure they are checked so the patients are not harmed, calibrated correctly, and a whole system. So the patient is pulled through the system rather than pushed through the system, so that you don't have a lot of waiting. You don't have a lot of patients waiting in urgent care in the emergency department or waiting to see the doctor in the clinic. So, what is the process? The first is to do a value stream, a map of the flow of the patients, a current state value stream, and then in 12 months, and then a 12-month value stream. So how do you want the current state, what does the current state look like, and what does the future state look like? The second thing is you need to start, you want to start to eliminate waste. And number 3 is the production preparation workshop. And this is where you bring people together, the patients, the patient families, the doctors, the nurses, and we'll show you that a little bit later on, and bring them together in a 5-day event to be able to design the flow. The flow of patients, the flow of information, the flow of equipment, etc. The flow of inventory. The fourth is to start the reduction of supplies and these flows that I talked about over here. Again, patients, families, doctors, information, supplies, medications, and equipment. Any questions so far? I think Christina had to step out.
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second.
Yes.
I work for Galgano, but my wife is Malaysian, so
Okay.
we got some concern about this technician.
About the, yes.
The point is that if you try to pull the system, to pull the flow directly to the last part of the old process,
Yes.
You got to assure that starting from the takt time,
Yes.
all the phases should be defined in order to respect the takt time.
Yes.
Yes. But the point is that there are same, the concern is related to the fact there are same phases that could be standardized. Otherwise, like the length of a surgery activity couldn't. So you can find out how long does it take to perform a surgery only when you do the first cut, let me say,
Yes.
something like this. How you deal about this problem? Just to standardize also that kind of activity.
Okay. Well, for surgery, for example, we will standardize the instruments. Let's say you have you have 17 surgeons that do laparoscopic surgery. So this is an example from Virginia Mason. So we have the chief of surgery, get all of the laparoscopic surgeons together, and each surgeon had a different set of instruments. And we put the price tag on all the instruments, how much they cost. One surgeon would have one type of an instrument that cost that the others didn't have. And we agreed with the 17 surgeons on the standard set of instruments for laparoscopy. It may be this, you do that for general surgery, you may do it for orthopedic, whatever type of surgery, say costs the most or takes the longest or whatever. So standardizing instruments is one way to do it. But you don't go in, we do not go in and work on the clinical part of what the surgeon does. Okay, that is off limits. But we work on all the external things, such as standardizing the instruments, standardizing the case cards, reducing the setup of the OR.
Yeah.
So you have external, internal setup. So the housekeepers go in with everything they need and then they leave. So we reduce that. So it's all the external things that go on, activities that go on, but we do not touch or fiddle with what the surgeon does. They are the experts.
And yet, do you have in this country clinical pathways? Clinical pathways? There's something called clinical pathways in our country that we're just beginning to do. So they might look at But that would be doctors. That would be the people that are the experts. We don't tell anybody how to do an operation. So, thank God.
The surgeons or whatever type of doctors will get together to determine the best pathway clinically through a process that is the best for the patient, the best cure, the fix, or whatever it might be. But we don't do that. So you may have heard, I don't know, a 5S is another thing that's done that can reduce the amount of waiting, the amount of time. These are hospital examples. There's internal medicine. There's biomed. And basic 5S means putting everything in its place, getting rid of the extra things that you don't need, and then the discipline to maintain the standard that you set. Here's another example of 5S. This is a mechanical room in a hospital, and this is another mechanical room before and after. So we require 5S before anything is done. First, a value stream map of the current and future state, then the 5S, then we work on reducing inventory, and then we go to work on improving the flow, the patient flow, and reducing the time it takes for the patient to go to a particular flow, the service line. So, this requires some cultural shifts, some different thinking. We say that the patient is first, all right? We say the patient is first, not the doctor, not the nurse, not the staff. Waiting is bad. We want defect-free medicine. We're going to have really good accountability, all right? Accountability for the process. No new resources, I mentioned that, that's one of the principles. Reducing waste through the lean principles. Real-time quality assurance, not retrospective, and what that means, not a lot of thinking about it, not a lot of sitting in the office and looking at charts and coming up with metrics, but real-time, immediately addressing the problem. Managing from where the work is done, really taking, there is no time, urgency is important, and the spirit of improvement. Let's just go try it. Okay? We may not succeed the first time, we try a second time, we try a third time. So we say, there's a saying, quick and crude is better than being slow and elegant and never fixing the problem. So this chart is from Toyota. So this shows when you start, and I'll use an example of Virginia Mason. So we started in the year 2000 with Virginia Mason. We were there 6 years. Today, after 12 years, they are about right. They are about right here. Right? There we go. They are about right here, 12 years. So let's say a point improvement in a hospital would say surgery. You want to improve the flow of patients through the surgery flow, or maybe it's the emergency department. All right. So that's the first thing you want to do. Then you want to link the processes. You want to link those processes. So when a patient comes, they check into the ED. And maybe they're admitted to the hospital. Maybe then they need surgery. So that whole, whatever that flow might be that you identify. All right, and then the discharge. So you link those processes, and you do that once you're able to reduce a bunch of the waste, and we call that a model line. So, for example, in one hospital in Saskatchewan, we're working in mental health service line, surgery service line, emergency department, and the supply chain. And once we get much of the waste out, then we can work in other processes within the hospital. All right, and this is where then you have the rate improvements, the replication, and then the spatial. That's the word for. That's where you're addressing, for example, the electronic health record, IT, all the other processes, business processes within a hospital system. So that's everything. Any questions on that slide? So that's what we have found for healthcare to go from point improvements all the way through to linking the different points through the replication and through the spatial lens, that's about 20 years. Virginia Mason is about 12 years. When we leave the Saskatchewan, the province, they will be at the 5-year mark. We have started now to link after 2 years, some point improvements, started flow going in, particularly in surgery. Metrics. What do we measure? We measure quality, cost, delivery, safety, and morale. Right? Those are the 5 basic metrics. So we want quality. I think you're all familiar with the quality metric: reliable, responsive, no mistakes. Cost. Okay? Costs are important whether it's a government system or not. Taxpayers pay for it in a government system. Delivery, right place, right time, right amount. Safety for the patient. All right, safety for the provider, and morale is that everyone cares. The staff, patient, morale is they're not upset when they come to the hospital, and so they know they're going to get good care. The 3 elements of the management system from Toyota: management by policy at the top. So we started 2 years ago in the Saskatchewan province, identifying in the 13 regions, 13 CEOs putting in place management by policy. They had starting initially about 25 different strategies. Those have been narrowed down to about 4 strategies with a common focus. And in all of the regions on the 4 strategies, daily management, very bad using this. Daily management then is taking, if you're focused on reducing wait times in surgery, wherever it is, the daily management that takes place all the way down to the first line supervisor, the manager, and the cross-functional management is across the value stream, across all of your functions. So cross-functional is horizontal, and management by policy is vertical. Daily management is within each of those flows. And here's what it looks like. So at the top, and we have these visibility rooms in all of the major hospitals. You might have a by policy on reducing costs, improving delivery, improving morale. And what happens then is there are visual boards up, and each week the CEO has a wall walk. So the CEO and their senior leadership team, they get in front of the wall and they look at quality, cost, delivery, safety, morale. They look at progress. And then all the way down at the first line level where you have the nurses operating, the nurses station, the managers, they're looking at the same type of metrics, and they have a daily huddle. So that system is in place pretty much in the province. So here's a visibility wall. So that's maintained so that everyone, including those workers that are in inpatient or wherever they're located in the emergency department, understand what the metrics are and how work is progressing and how the improvements and the issues that they need to deal with and improve. Any questions so far? Okay. So this chart.
Sorry,
Yes.
let me just go back to what you
Go
were
back?
mentioning before. No, what
This
you,
one?
No, before. But accountability. What do you mean by accountability?
By what?
Accountability.
Oh, accountability?
What do you mean by it?
Well, the responsibility for if something happens that, for example, one of the things we work on and putting in place is called Stop the Line. So when there's a mistake, that if it's a nurse that makes a mistake, whatever, that they're very free to say, we must stop the line, there's a mistake here, I think I was responsible, and there's not blame, no blame. So accountable for what goes wrong or what is done well, but not blame. So that's accountability. So there's not you don't want to create you want to create a threat-free environment where people want to come forward and say, this is not working. For example, in surgery, the surgeon might say, we're not going to read the checklist. You know, we have a mandated checklist. The surgeon might say, we're not going to read it. The nurse in the room might say, stop the line. We cannot go forward with this surgery unless we read the checklist. And the environment you want there is that there's not going to be blame, there's going to be accountability that's accepted by whoever is responsible without threat. Okay. So did I answer your question?
Yes.
It's a very good question. Thank you. So here, let's look at a hospital in terms of the patient. The patient flows this way. All the services are this way. We call those functional silos. All right. We don't want to have the patient to have to struggle and go through all those silos to get their treatment and wait unnecessarily. All right, or wait at all. So let's say it's the OR. It's a hospital, and then it's a healthcare enterprise. So in our case, with our client, it's an OR in a particular hospital, and within that OR and hospital, and there are other hospitals within that region. So the first thing we want to do is a value stream map. The second thing we want to do is take the value stream map and identify what needs to be improved, set targets. The next thing we want to do is put in standard work, okay? There's standard work that says this is the way we want the work to be done, and we do that and put that in by utilizing 3P and doing Kaizen and then inventory reduction. So standard work is put in place in the 5-day events with the participation of the people that do the work. So they create the standard work. So it is not dictated by management that says this is the way the work is going to be done, because in the project we have about 9 unions, and the unions participate with us. At Boeing, we had about 30 unions, and all the unions participated with us. So it's how you do this and how you communicate and how you work with the union membership and the union leaders. All right? So that's very important. So it's not dictated, it's a very participating process, otherwise it's not going to work. So any questions of me? I know there's a lot of slides there. I tried to explain it the best I could. I'm sorry I did not speak Italian. But, all right, join him.
My glasses. Okay, so you want to prepare to implement lean. What do you have to do? Does this all make sense so far, or yes, no? Are we going too fast, too slow? Give us a, what? So? It's all right? Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Boo, like in the Scala. The first thing you need to do is you want to get rid of competing strategies. So a lot of times in our companies, in our organizations, in our hospitals, we have a lot of different programs going on. Okay, a lot of times they don't line up. There are a lot of good tools. For example, how many are involved in quality improvement efforts? Yes, some of you? Okay, a lot of good tools used in quality improvement efforts. But when you want to implement lean, you want to really focus around that house. You don't want some people over here doing quality improvement, some people over here doing another program. You really want to come together so the whole organization is speaking with one voice, right? It's a very difficult thing oftentimes to speak with one voice. Is vero? Okay. You want to find an outside sensei, and what I mean by that, in Japan you call a sensei, it's a leader or a master, a consulting company that knows about lean. Galgano Group has been involved in lean many years. They're a good company to get your expertise from, and you want to sign nothing shorter than a 3 to 5 year contract. So maybe some of you in the room aren't in the position to sign contracts, but this is just giving you an idea because this takes a tremendous commitment. This is not just send everybody off to a few courses. This takes a lot of leadership, a lot of commitment, a lot of top down, and you don't want to just start something, get everybody all excited, and then say, oh, okay, we're done. Now, the last point I think is the most important for government. My experience with government, and you tell me if this is true or not for your experience. My experience with government is there is no sense of urgency. We don't necessarily operate. When I worked with government clients, they said, doesn't really matter what I do. They pay me a salary, I go in, I do my work, I could be here or not be here, it's not important. So as a leader, you have to begin to create that sense of urgency, like there's just been a major catastrophe or a major earthquake. You've got the Red Cross on the ground, they're moving, all that sort of thing. That's the kind of tone as a leader you want to create, okay? Identify your business and its scope. Okay, what are you in business to do? Serve the patient, right? But maybe there's some services that you decide, maybe it's not appropriate. For example, when I was at Boeing, they had, if you can believe it, they build airplanes, right? But I think they also owned a potato farm. So are those kind of businesses that we want to be in. Establish a Kaizen promotion office, and I'm not going to go into that too much because John's going to tell you about that organizational structure, and Kaizen operation teams, KOTs, which are actually people that are familiar and trained in lean, and they're embedded right in the line. So for example, surgical services, you'd have a KOT right in that line helping that group to do lean. Begin with a model line. Say surgical services. I know in private hospitals, a big, what we call a cash cow, that brings in the money is the ORs. So you want to make sure your ORs are constantly working. There was one hospital we went in and they were using one of the ORs for a storage room. Very expensive storage room, right? So you want to implement your waste elimination strategies through doing Kaizen or RPIWs. When you hear Kaizen, RPIWs, essentially the same kind of thing. In fact, back to that Peace Health slide, it was, you'll hear RPIWs throughout the country in the United States. When we brought it to America, when we were at Peace Health, they said, we can't call it Kaizen. People won't understand what Kaizen is, so they said, we want to call it Rapid Process Improvement Workshop. So that's where that came from. Map out your value streams, disrupt the organization, focus on cutting lead time. Now, when I say lead time, do you know what I mean when I say lead time? So lead time actually is, for example, surgical services. From the time a patient, a doctor says, you need surgery, to the time they are discharged from the hospital, that is what's called lead time. Your cycle time is a little bit different. Your cycle time is those individual boxes, right? And the time it takes to go through those boxes. For example, you've got admitting, okay? You've got pre-op, you've got the surgery itself, then you've got post-op, and then you get to go home, hopefully, okay? Those are cycle times. So what you want to focus on in RPIWs and Kaizen is cutting that time. And oftentimes, I think what you said is it's the linking. It's the time between those spots, you know. Might be really efficient in admitting, but now between admitting and pre-op, I wait like an hour or whatever it is, okay? Reorganized by service line. So surgical services, value flows this way, the customer goes that way. Now this is a key point. Develop internal leaders with a passion for Kaizen. One of the things John Black and Associate really believes, and you're not going to find a lot of consulting organizations, at least in the United States, very few believe this, but we firmly believe this, is that everyone in this room, every single person in this room could be trained to be a Kaizen leader, a lean leader, so to speak. So what we believe in is we come in for a while, but you don't have to rely on us for the rest of your life. You know, we're of the philosophy that we're going to teach you how to fish instead of giving you fish. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why we focus a lot on internal leaders, and we're going to talk a little bit about it later on about what kind of education that they get. This is a big point. Deal with the excess people at the onset. Okay? If you already know you're top heavy as a top manager, you want to deal with that. Deal with that issue. If you have to have layoffs before you start any lean efforts. Because the big problem, what happens, you're going to tell me, what happens if you start lean efforts and then you get rid of people? What happens? Oh, come on. You know. What happens? Exactly. Nobody's going to tell you where the waste is. Right? If I'm going to lose my job, am I going to tell you where all the dead bodies are buried? No. Okay? So you have to deal with all that before. Okay, John's going to now, let's see, did I cover everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is a typical infrastructure organization that we put in. So you have to have an infrastructure that's going to implement, that is going to